Okay. Good morning, everyone. It's nice to meet you all. As I introduce myself, my name is Diana Anyango Kolek, and I am the CEO of Evoke Global. So I'll just do like a 30 seconds introduction of who Evoke Global is. We are a training and consulting organization. We have 3 key pillars that we focus on. That is working with the mid-sized companies to help them, and also organizations to help them create strategic plans, and also we help them with the process of implementation and evaluation. We also focus on research, so that's basically the main reason why I'm here. We helped develop, analyze, and also create the report that we are launching today. And finally, we also work with startups and mid-sized companies to just help them develop businesses that are sustainable and profitable through our business development services. So I will go straight into the report. And basically, the baseline survey was more a survey that we wanted to just try and understand the demographics and the socioeconomic position of young people in the country. And this is in relation to the human rights, accountability, politics and governance issues that we are really focusing on here. And we were actually mandated as Nerima, sorry, your name has just disappeared in my head. Yeah, as Nerima has just mentioned. So, so basically there are quite a number of questions we were looking at, and there were bigger objectives, and some of the questions that we were looking at is, how we were trying to see whether young people are actually involved, are they present when you're talking about, being positive actors of change. And then also we're looking at whether the young people are actually speaking up when it comes to issues concerning human rights violation, discrimination, disinformation, misinformation, and hate speech. We were also, trying to just collect information, gather data that will just shed light on the kind of challenges young people are actually going through right now, and what are some of their aspirations. We were also, trying to, just get a feel of whether they have any influence when it comes to the political parties' manifestos, and also the policies that are created in these political parties. The other thing that we were also trying to find out is whether the young people are actually, thinking of taking part in, activities that will bring them together to create a movement that will promote, their self-defined agendas. And finally, are they involved when it comes to promoting nonviolence amongst young people? So I will go straight to just going through the key highlights. These are just the key highlights, and you will find more details on the report itself. So on the survey, we were able to get respondents from 309 young people from 36 counties. And Nairobi was actually the one that had the highest number at 33%. When you look at the gender, it was quite balanced, I would say. The females were 51.5%, and the male were 47.9%. And this was really good, as we all know that we really want to get the gender to be as balanced as possible, to be able to get a balanced view of all the items we were looking at. One of the biggest questions that we were asking was to just try and understand what are some of the issues or concerns, the main concerns that young people have. And they were given two options. They were given two opportunities to give like their number one and two main problems that they're facing right now. And from the survey, we found out that 57.6% of the young people said that their biggest challenge is the high prices and the high taxation that we have. And I'm sure all of you can attest to this. Right now, the cost of sugar is actually 140 per kg, which is just crazy. It's really a big challenge because salaries are actually, people are getting salary cuts. Some are getting retrenched, because of the COVID pandemic issue. It's really crazy. So that was actually the main issue that the young people presented as their highest concern. The next one was the aspect of unemployment at 14.9%, and then finally poverty at 14.2%. And it's interesting, and one of the recommendations would actually be, to look into this aspect of unemployment because of high unemployment. Definitely, if prices are going up, then it means they cannot really take care of their livelihood. And it's something that really needs to be discussed further, even as you come up with different projects. So the next issue of main concern, so most of the young people were saying prices, and then the next thing was actually unemployment at 41.4%. Then the next one was corruption at 18.8%. And then finally, healthcare at 12.9%. And here we're just highlighting the three key things that we found were really, really important for the young people. On the main report, you'll be able to see other items that were of concern for the young people for your own reference. We were also looking at, we actually, now this, I'm just going to give a summary of some of the items we were looking at. And one of the main ones was the issue of just looking at who is the biggest motivator of young people. And it was interesting to see that most of them, at 66.3%, were saying that their biggest motivation was from family, which is really something that was positive because for any change to happen, it must start from the family unit. And that was really a big thing to look into. The other thing is the young people at 33.7% say that to solve the issue of unemployment, they have looked for jobs. We didn't go really deeper to find out whether they were able to find the jobs or not. But yeah, at 33.7%, most of them mentioned that they actually went out and looked for a job. And when it comes to the aspect of just voicing their concerns concerning all these issues that we're talking about, 25% of them say that they actually use social media to voice their concerns, which is really interesting because right now, they say 75% of the population in this country is young people. And right now, IT has become a really big thing, and social media being part of it, it's a way of, just expressing yourself, and it has actually become a big tool for young people to actually express themselves. And just to think about it, it will actually be a big tool that can be used by organizations such as yours to just, come up with creative ways of just trying to come up with solutions for some of the issues that they are going through. So at 25%, we found that was, the main way of expressing themselves. So as I conclude, and as I said, this was just highlights of the presentations. The whole report it's really huge, robust. We came up with different ways of just looking at the gender and some comparing gender and some of the issues that the young people are going through, and also just looking at where they come from, the different counties that they come from, and just analyzing some of the issues that they go through. So from the report, you'll be able to see much more of this from the report. So overall, the social media has presented an alternative, voice for awareness creation, as the youth appears to be aware of the socio-economic issues that they are currently, experiencing. And it's actually a good, would say, a tool that can be used for them to be able to speak up. So basically, as I mentioned, the report, it just gives us a highlight of the critical elements that define the concerns that the youth have. And of most important is just to, of most importance, it's important for us to now start thinking of how can we, bring all the stakeholders to just look at areas of synergies, areas of convergence, so that we can come up with solutions. My key, I have 3 P's that I really focus on, which is purpose, progress, and prosperity. And for you to get to prosperity, you have to start with having a clear purpose, a clarity of purpose, where with this report, we now know what areas to focus on. And for us to be able to progress, we have to take steps, take some action steps. And by this, I would propose, focusing on more of, partnerships with different organizations. We can also focus on the 3 Ps, that's public, private, and people partnerships, to be able to come up with solutions that will actually help us go forward. So I think I will leave it at that. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
So then thank you for that presentation. I already see in the comments, you have a few questions, but I can already see that's an oversight. There was a question from John, I believe, where he was asking whether some of the participants in the survey had disabilities, or did we interview any? Yeah, so I don't know if you want to answer that or answer that. So John, that's a very good question. In all honesty, that wasn't part of the questions that was within the survey. So that's an oversight. So on our end, that's definitely a learning. So we're not sure whether within that data we had some participants participate with disabilities. But then I would like to leave the question and answer for after, because right now I'd like to pass over the laptop to Melvin, just to give us some insights on what she thought. I feel that it's also important to get feedback from people who are very active in the university space, even university leadership, and as a young person herself, engaging in these spaces and platforms.
So I hope I can be heard. Thank you, Siasa Place. Thank you, Article 19, Evoke, and any other partnering organizations. I hope I can be heard well. Miriam, please keep tabs on the comment section in case of. So I was also one of the participants in answering the questions, and I am glad that the things, I think the 3 things that came out, the topmost, high taxes, unemployment and poverty, I have seen them with let me use the basic language. I've seen them with my bare eyes. and I think it is also crazy that at a time when everyone, at least every company or every organization or every job is trying to cut down on salaries or firing people, the taxes go up. That's crazy, and you wonder how is that even happening? But it's unfortunate that it's happened. And it's also crazy that things that we should be affording, basically like food, are the ones that are mostly affected by these high taxes. Like someone just mentioned, sugar, there's maize flour and things like that. And it is also a time when our agricultural produce that we would maybe think can improve our lives or can at least assist where things are not doing so well, are also not doing well. We've also increased prices for the farmers. Generally getting things like fertilizers or farm produce is hard. It's really, really hard. And I think that is something that we need a change. So I think as a young person, as a youth, and being in these spaces, I have seen that through seeking employment, we also think that being in politics is more lucrative than other jobs. Well, I totally approve, and I'm totally encouraging every young person to go for politics, because we need representation and all that. But I also need to emphasize that we cannot make the political industry more lucrative than other industries. If all of us escape to that space, then what's going to happen to the farmers, or what's going to happen to other people? In as much as you're going to politics and maybe you're going to be an MP, you're going to pass good laws for that, but you also need to look at other spaces, and you also need to see that in the last 5 years, at least, we tried to maybe elect some youths in those spaces, but they haven't talked about the major concerns. So in as much as we're encouraging our youths to stand politically, to vie for those positions, to get appointed and to get into those spaces, we also need to encourage these other industries, farming, creative industry. Thank you to John. Is it John? Thank you, John, so much for coming up with the Blind Mix Masters. I don't know if you're the founder or you work with them, but for whatever you're doing, thank you very much, because I'm encouraged personally. At least you're also helping people who we think that could be on the streets to beg. You're also helping them to realize their potentials and to also make a living for themselves. I want to encourage any young person who's here, if you have the opportunities and the chances to do that, to work with such people, if you're privileged enough to have everything in your life functioning, then that is the way to go. We need to grow holistically, not just one part where maybe as a student leader, I keep seeking appointment somewhere, and then once I get it, I start siding with those people there and forget why in the first place I came here. Okay, so in addressing these challenges, we have to play a role. In addressing the challenges facing human rights, and with I cannot talk about human rights without talking about the judiciary, and now we are bringing in the aspect of the executive. You see, I'm quite a stalker, or I'm quite a follower of social media, and especially Twitter, because people on Twitter talk, and we talk about everything and anything. And one thing that you see is who is siding with who's talking about what, who's supporting what, who's not supporting what. Over the recent past, I want to talk about the Miguna issue, because I think that is the best I can use for a case study. When we are talking about Miguna issue, there are two sides. There's a part that thinks Miguna should actually stay where he is, and then there's a part that feels, no, this is very wrong. Whichever side of the divide that you fall in, you need to ask yourself this question. Why are you falling on that side? Why do you want this person to stay out of, why do you want the abuse of his rights to remain like that? And if you're supporting it, I also hope if you're supporting it, we keep saying that the truth is the truth, whether it comes from the devil or from God, it's the truth. But you also need to know that it's not just about you championing for Miguna right now. You need to holistically champion for human rights. If tomorrow maybe somebody from the other side of the political divide is being abused like that, would you still fight for them? Even though if you're fighting for those rights right now, it is still good, but you need to also maintain. Let's not be a two-faced kind of people. If you think that this person should be deported just because you're not in support of their ideologies or because they don't support your favorite politician, that is very wrong. Because our human and constitutional rights should never be interfered with. And as a youth, whichever side you are on, you need to ask yourself those questions. Yesterday, I was privileged to be part of the hearing of the petition that was tabled yesterday. And it is unfortunate. As a law student, I know better than judging a lawyer with their client's cause or with the party with which they're representing. But I'm just like, as a youth or as a young person, if I am supporting the executive, if I'm supporting the AG in abusing these rights, I'm actually doing something very wrong, because history will judge me very harshly. The next time I will not be in that position, I will not be the AG's attorney, or I will not be an attorney in that office, and someone who's very close to me is going to be affected. And you see, if the case you're taking to court actually passes, you've already set a precedent. So it means that the next injustice that will come, they will use that. And it will be very hard to depart from that. So then we need to know exactly where we fall. We need to work without, we need to do things without siding with the political, with those political factions, because this thing is going to affect us not just today, but also tomorrow. On the unemployment, there's what we can do, and there's also what our leaders can do. And I want us to shift. I want us to look at this thing as a whole. What part are we taking? What roles are we playing in all this, and what roles are our leaders supposed to play? When you look at it that way, then we will not just be blaming one side and shifting blame every time, but we will know what is supposed to be done, who is supposed to do this, and who's supposed to, and things like that. So I think as I conclude, I also want to urge the youth. I want to urge the young people. Leadership is not just about politics. Governance isn't just about politics. Remember that aside from politics, we have other industries or factories that are not really in the political space. So if you take spaces in those companies to be leaders, in those industries to be leaders, then you could actually be bringing something to the table. Another thing, take care of your spaces. There's a lot of capture by politicians, by the executive, and by all these bodies. You need to take care and to sanitize the spaces that you're in, so that we do not come to the next 5 years and we realize that the last 2 or 3 years, we actually left a loophole where we were captured by these old people. And that's why right now we cannot move forward. And I'll call them old people because, well, they're old. I know with old age, there's supposed to be wisdom, but we cannot see it all the time. So I hope that in those spaces that you are, you can actually play a role that will also help you in the next 5 years. If you realize in the last 5 years you are alive, even today you're alive, yeah? So the things that you did, the people that you elected last 5 years, they're the same people who now you don't want to see. So the decisions that you're making right now in addressing the things that are affecting us, we have to mind the next coming years. Okay, I'll just pass the baton to the next person, and if there are any questions for me, I will answer them.
Yeah, I think Melvin, I hand over to Judy. But I think Melvin, you are an outlier. I think my question for you, which we'll discuss after, would be: are you the only one? Because you come from a place where you're in student leadership now, and you're speaking as though you're very futuristic, but we understand some of the challenges that occur. As much as we're seeing a lot of youth entering politics for profit, and we're seeing how the high cost of living is affecting young people, So we're not surprised in terms of people using different ways to get money. So my question to you is, are there many of you who speak like this? Or are you few, and do you find yourself John the Baptist in the desert? That later. And right now I'd like to request Anthony. Yes, Anthony is online. So I'll just hand over to Judy to deal with the technicalities, who will also give her his perspective, especially from the ground, since he has been working in terms of voter registration.
Okay. Thank you. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, but please, if you're using your microphone, if you're using your earphone, please move it closer to your mouth. Move the earpiece to your mouth. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, you ready?
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity. My name is Anthony Omondi, and I was part of the electoral process that just concluded a few weeks ago as a voter educator and a voter mobilizer. Yeah? Before I continue, allow me to analyze this report here just in two ways. First, in a socio-economic way, and secondly, in a political angle, whereby I'll give my view with regards to the outcome of such report, with regards to political participation, especially in voter registration and elections. First and foremost, if I can look clearly when in this report, you'll see that the biggest concern is with regards to taxation, unemployment, poverty, and things like health. We should remember that in Kenya, whereby we both have urban and rural areas, taxation here is differently, especially with regards to guys living in urban areas and guys living in the rural areas. For example, someone earning 20,000 in, let's say, Trans Nzoia County, technically is far much richer and better than someone earning 20,000 in, let's say, Nairobi or Mombasa. Why? Because there's a high chance that the person who earns 20,000 in Trans Nzoia County spends less money, maybe on food, transport, rent, as compared to someone staying in Nairobi. Why? There's a likelihood that maybe the guy in Trans Nzoia County stays in his or her own ancestral land, grows their own food, walks to work. So that guy has a high chance of saving as compared to someone who stays in Nairobi, who has to pay fare, rent, electricity, and so on. So when we look at such instances, we need to understand where the demographics, where guys are coming from. Is it in the urban areas? Is it in the rural areas? Then from there we can be able to demystify and look how we can be able to gauge. Going forward, like I told you earlier, I was a voter mobilizer whereby I was mandated to go on the ground. And one of the main duties was to pick opinions and views of people on the ground. I was in Embakasi East in a ward known as Lower Savannah or Soweto, which is a low income area, especially as compared to maybe other areas. So, and the view on the ground is most youths are reluctant to participate in electoral processes such as registration and even going forward, maybe voting, because they feel like they have nothing to offer. Why? They feel disappointed by the leaders who they elected. The economic hardship that has been witnessed for the past 5 years, which was compounded by the COVID, they made it even hard for the youth to come out and register as voters. And it reached a point whereby they were directly demanding for handouts so that they can go and register. Another thing we witness is that Nairobi County, whereby I can say we have a huge majority of elected youthful leaders. Most of them have been disappointed, and this could be seen on the ground whereby a small percentage of them rarely participated in the voter registration exercise. Why? The guys on the ground were disappointed. They didn't want to see them at all because they feel like in as much as you'll give us the best manifestos, the moment you test that political money, you just leave us on the ground barehanded. So one thing I witnessed is that guys were demanding handouts to go and register, or else they just ignored the process, which is a very dangerous thing. Why? Because that means the people who will have advantage over the electorate are guys who have money, whether clean or dirty money. And of course, being politics, a huge percentage of the money spent on the ground is usually the dirty money. because that most of the in most scenario in most scenarios, I was witnessing a case whereby guys used to come out only after being promised like something like 200 shillings after registering as voters, yeah, which was scary. And for most of the incumbents, let's say specifically the MCAs, yeah, most of them are not on the ground because they feared the harsh brutality of the guys who voted for them, yeah. And like the guys who were spending money for the guys to go and register were the upcoming aspirants, yeah. And as you know, the trend in Kenya, anytime, like maybe let's say for example, like a voter registration is around, let's say 20,000, yeah. The main elections, during the main elections, there's a chance that out of that 20,000, only like 70% of them will come out to register as voters. Yeah. Now you can imagine this time around when the percentage of new registered voters was 25% of the targeted number. You can imagine what will be the outcome in August, yeah? Especially now when life is still becoming more harder and harder. In August, like according to my own analysis, yeah, in August, we might see like a huge voter apathy in protest of the economic hardship because the opinion on the ground was guys are hungry. They need something to put in their stomach so that they can be able to participate in the electoral process. And this will only give advantage to guys who have dirty money, since you know, like most of them have the free will to throw money here and there to gain favor in their way politically. Yeah. And okay, I really wish I could be able to see the report fully, but so that I can try and analyze it with the percentage of counties with regards to voter registration. And I'm so sure you'll realize that in most urban areas, let's say Mombasa, Nairobi, Kisumu, Nakuru, these areas whereby like life is more harder as compared to rural areas, it is in these same areas that you'll realize that the percentage of new voters was extremely low. If you could remember during the month of October, just when the voter registration process was going on, yeah, some leaders in coastal counties, especially in Mombasa, and also some areas in central Kenya, yeah, where the leaders are complaining as to why we don't have new voters coming out to register as voters, yeah, you'll actually agree that it is in relation with what this report is saying with regards to taxation, unemployment, and poverty. Yeah? So most guys on the ground were really like disinterested, like because they see like, why should I go and employ someone who won't give me anything in return? So they're only siding with the guys who are giving out handouts. Yeah. And I'm so sure even in the general elections, yeah, in most urban areas where life is more expensive, that is where we'll expect low voter turnout. We'll have a huge voter apathy in most urban areas as compared to rural areas, because it is in urban areas whereby the life is more harder, yeah, because of the expenses as compared to rural areas. You know, personally, if you look at these things analytically, yeah, like someone who lives in a mud house, maybe let's say in Turkana, his or her own house, and maybe grows their own food, yeah, maybe okay, uses like something like a koroboi or a candle as his own light, that person is far much better as compared to someone who lives in a rented house, whether it has electricity, because the guy who lives in a rented house has to pay electricity, has to pay water, has to pay most like 90% of the things that they're using, as compared to someone who comes from the rural areas. So in conclusion, I can say, yes, the social economic issues affecting the youth will have a very huge impact in the coming general elections, which is already seen, which was already seen in the just concluded voter registration. And as organizations, I can say like from today going forward until August when the elections will come, we can do more surveys and like maybe see whether the youth will participate in elections. What will influence them to come out to participate in elections? Because as we speak, a huge percentage of youths have no emotional attachments to any kind of political leaders around, whether they promise them heaven or what. But a huge percentage of them have no emotional attachment as compared to previous elections, and the results, it could be seen, and it will be seen even more further when the coming elections like approach. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anthony. Thank you for your insights.
I heard you say most young people are reluctant to register to vote and participate in electoral votes in electoral processes. So I'm wondering, is it a young people problem, or is it the drive? Is it the way the drive is being taken? I don't know. What can we do to encourage more young people to come out in these spaces?
You see,
That's for
actually,
us to think about.
yeah. And okay, all I can say is that most young people, yeah, like let's say maybe like from the ages of 18 to 23, yeah, whereby majority of them are still in maybe in tertiary institutions, yeah. I can say most of them have felt the biggest impact of this economic downfall, yeah, because you can imagine maybe some of them who are in campus, they cannot afford the campus lifestyle, or maybe who were like, maybe like some of them who are like maybe small businesses who have been affected by high taxes, the city council rates, etc, etc, yeah. So a majority of them feel disappointed, yeah, by the kind of political leadership and the policies that have been placed towards them, yeah, and they don't feel the eager to come out and register as voters. If you could remember very well, like some of us, okay, we're not that old, but you know, when most of us used to reach 18, we had that excitement that we'll be voting in, yeah, that drive, you know, like it was something that we looked up to when we were young. Like anytime we used to see our parents and our older siblings going out to vote and register as voters, there was that eagerness, yeah, that I need to reach 18 so that I can also participate in this democratic space. But it is no longer there. Why? Maybe some of them see their parents going a lot of hardships, cursing politicians, maybe. So they just see what is going around in their homes, and it just comes out automatically as a reflection. Picture this: maybe someone whose parent lost a job during the COVID pandemic season, yeah, or maybe due to poor policy and taxes, yeah. I don't think that person will be eager to vote when they see their parents undergoing the kind of suffering. Maybe the parent can't pay their school fees in campus. I don't think that person will be eager to go out and vote because of the experience they have undergone. So these are some of the things that we used to encounter on the ground, yeah. And
Anthony,
going forward,
please move your earpiece to closer to your mouth so we can
okay,
hear you clearly.
okay, like sorry about, like I'm saying, yeah. If like maybe most of these young people have seen their parents undergoing some kind of hardship, maybe due to the tough economic times, yeah. Some of their parents lost jobs, some of their parents like had their businesses going down. And like us, whom we used to see our parents going out to vote, and we had that drive because we used to see our parents going out there, casting their votes and coming out, or maybe registering as voters. That is what made us like have that eagerness, have that drive to register as voters immediately we reach 18 years. Yeah, it was maybe it was that is like 10 years ago, yeah, whereby most of us were still young. We had that drive because we saw our older siblings and parents going out to vote. But this generation, they've witnessed their parents undergoing one of the worst economic depressions ever. Some of their parents maybe could not pay school fees, they could not pay rent, they could not provide for them like adequately. So this will reflect to the young voters. They will be like, okay, if you politicians could not make my parent afford food, why should I come out and vote for you, and yet you made my parents suffer? That is the thing going around on the ground, yeah, which is basically around social economic factors, and it will have a very huge impact in the upcoming elections, which was already seen during the voter registrations, whereby we only had 25% of the intended target. So yeah, that is my opinion with regards to that is my the fact and the opinion I had with regards to this survey that has just been launched. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anthony. And on your last point, I think part of the survey was saying that the greatest motivation for young people comes from their families.
It's true.
So it's just even for us to think about the kind of motivation we're getting and how we are using it. Do we have our own minds? Are we just following people? Are we following our families? Are we following other people's stands? Yeah, so it's for us young people to think about it. Next in line, another young person who was part of the survey, Cynthia on Twitter.
All right, thank you. As previously mentioned, my name is Cynthia Ontita from the Youth Cafe. And we are truly delighted to actually be part of the baseline report, focusing on youth participation in human rights, accountability, politics, and governance today. So from this particular survey, it has actually brought out pertinent issues in the form of challenges and needs that the young people in Kenya are actually facing. With it, we get to continuously work and see the need to work with the government, work with communities, and also the different relevant development partners to be able to make sure that these needs that the young people are facing, we are able to find different solutions for them. We are able to find opportunities where these young people can actually be able to come in and get assisted and be able to live and thrive socially, thrive politically, and also economically. At the heart, we have democracy, which we believe democracy is about people, and it is built on inclusion, built on equal treatment and participation of every individual, which after this, we get to have the whole aspect looking at the fundamental building block for peace. It also assists in the sustainable development and human rights. These values and aspirations cannot be seen as just tokens or lip service, but we believe must be real in people's lives. And at the same time, young people are have the opportunity to be able to come together, connect, and give voice on issues that matter using new media to be able to fight the injustice that we get to see and we get to be part of. Also get to fight the discrimination, human rights abuses, also be part of reviving student activism to be able to give voice to the people who are not that much empowered, and also taking individual and collective action for what they believe in. True democracy, looking at it, is actually a two-way street where we get to build on a constant dialogue, having a dialogue between the civil society and also the political class. And from this dialogue, it must actually have a real influence on political decisions. And that is why political participation, civic space, and social dialogue make up very key foundations of good governance. When we look at our civic space today, it is actually shrinking worldwide at an alarming rate. And most civic society activists are actually finding it very hard to be able to operate. When you look at the human rights defenders, most of them are actually under attack. Looking at different women, most women tend to feel they are vastly underrepresented from all angles, looking at the political space, looking at the workspace, amongst others, and also looking at the journalists. Most of them tend to face interference, and in some cases, they also face cases related to violence. Looking at the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, we get to see that under SDG 16, it addresses democracy in sustainable development. And here it looks at the indivisible links between peaceful societies, effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions. And looking at also studies and previous experiences, it shows that the voter turnout tends to be significantly lower among the youth as compared to the elderly population. Yet, the youth make up the majority of the population at 75%. As such, we believe our goal around youth inclusion in politics is to actually work together to increase the number of informed youth participating in the upcoming 2022 elections in Kenya, and also have an increased participation of marginalized groups such as youth, the young women and girls, and also people living with disabilities as we approach elections. The objectives of our programming on youth and the 2022 elections is to
have and ensure there's enhanced efficiency and effectiveness of the government systems in Kenya, and also just be able to call for duty bearers to practice a code of ethics while being transparent and accountable in fulfilling their obligations over their personal interests. And also just trying to look at a goal where we are able to develop education approaches on voting rights and the roles of youth in peaceful elections through different ways. We could have advocacy campaigns where the youth get to lobby for 2022 Kenya elections that are actually violence-free, and also working to ensure that the youth are not used and not manipulated when it comes to the whole political process. Another goal is to be able to enhance the skills, the competencies, the knowledge, and the confidence of young citizens to be able to enable them to engage on the platform, take part in governance processes, and also improve their leadership capacity. And lastly, one of the other goal is to get to mobilize young people to track, collect data evidence, and participate in the oversight of public commitments, looking at live reviews from citizens on these initiatives that have actually been set up, and what other things we could actually add on to, and also different commitments. So what we at the Youth Cafe are actually doing, we are focusing on the next generation and youth inclusion in politics. And just looking at different data and different statistics, we get to see that East Africa is actually young in democracy and in its political institutions, since most of them are not well established. And if they are well established, they are not, how would I say it? The government structures are not that strong. And also, most youth are actually excluded from important decision-making processes. So governments and policy makers in East Africa are tend to be reluctant to be able to include the youth in the formal political systems. So as such, what future then do the youth have to be able to increase their participation in politics? So the baseline survey that is being launched today gives very strong recommendations, such as having youth-centric organizations come together and lobby for unblocking more funds to be able to support youth-led businesses, as well as lobbying for the government to provide a favorable environment for youth-led businesses to thrive. And also another notable recommendation is on how youth organizations can actually organize and ensure they have given young people voices and skills to influence in the coming party primaries, as well as the general elections. So one clear way we at the Youth Cafe actually doing this is by collaboratively working with the young people to come up with the Kenya Youth Manifesto 2022, which will get to focus on youth participation in the democratic process, and also seek to engage young people in issues that get to affect them through increasing their informed participation in the upcoming 2022 elections in Kenya. And also the Kenya Youth Manifesto will also get to seek to effectively include young people in democracy by providing a platform to organize, generate ideas, and voice their opinions without the interference of power difference. As a centrist and governmental organization, the Youth Cafe therefore calls upon all young people in the country to be not only critical examiners of government proposals, but also be active players in all democratic processes. And that is how our country will actually get to grow. Youth engagement in democracy not only promotes active citizenship, but also gets to strengthen social responsibility. I believe that young people must get engaged in formal political processes and also give their voice in drawing both today's and tomorrow's politics. Indeed, when we have an engaged youth, then we definitely have an empowered youth. Yeah, thank you.
So much, Cynthia, Melvin, and Anthony. There's a question that Nirima had asked Melvin. Do you want to respond right now?
So to respond to the question that Nitma asked, to be honest, we are very few of us. I think I've had the privilege of being and sitting and working with student leaders and youth leaders, so many of them. And I think if you observe keenly, you realize just how dishonest we are, because to the public we speak one thing, and when we go to the implementation or to what we are supposed to do, it is another thing. That's a reflection of what we are having right now in our county governments and in the national government, because it's the same thing. People out here speak, very strong words, very good English, Swahili, and they condemn a lot of things. But when you go back to their houses, and by their houses I mean the youth or the institutions that they lead, it is more or less the same thing. They embezzle funds, they steal, they abuse people in their workplaces, they make those places very, very toxic. When the opportunities that they can give to other people to grow, they don't. Either there's nepotism, there's corruption, and there's all those things. The things that you people see happening right now in the national government, they're also down here. And sometimes when somebody is calling out their governor or their MP, I'm like, but you're doing the same thing here. You've been given just a team of 10 people to lead, but that is the same thing you're doing. But just because we are very few of us does not mean that we give up. I'm sure that the few of us are also going to encourage other people, who in turn, in the next few years, we are going to be so many. So we also need to know how. I think this is a conversation I've had with the majority of people I see who are occupying good spaces like the Siasa place. And we need to also empower and really just help our young leaders who are growing up, so that they can know that it is not, whatever is happening up there is not the right thing, and we need to change that narrative. Because this youth today, somebody who's 24 years, in the next 5 years they'll be 29, they'll probably be running for office either in the local government or in the national government. And if we elect them, this person who 5 years ago was misusing funds in UN, that is the same thing that person is going to do there. So we also need to, I don't want to castigate them, we also just need to hold their hands and show them that what you've been seeing isn't the right thing, but we can change it like this, and this is how we can go. So we are few, but there's hope. For me, there's hope, because I believe that through me, I'm going to raise at least 5 leaders who are going to be as futuristic as I am today, and who are going to do well. Yeah.
So I'd like to take this opportunity. I've been listening and also writing some of the points that I've been seeing as really standing out. So in the research which you can download, there is an aspect of us trying to measure where the youth live in terms of access to water, the kind of housing that they have, and also the demographics, the fact that it's 36 counties. Also the information that wasn't in the presentation is the fact that youth, when it comes to their relations with who they respect or listen to, as much as 66% was family, teachers was the lowest. And so that also says a lot in terms of how young people now are respecting teachers who interact with them as much as family members do. So sometimes when we see then these fires occurring, it comes to show you that there's also a disconnect with young people. Another comment that I think stood out to me is why are we having this right now, is the fact that we're trying to get an understanding of what youth find important, and also to see whether even politicians, as they're building their manifestos, as they go out to get these votes, are they really connecting with young people? Do they really understand where the shoe is pinching young people? So right now, I'd just like to give a few minutes, because I'm seeing it's 11:25. So just a few minutes to those who have been listening. If there's anyone who has any comment or would like to ask a question, this is your opportunity to do so. So you can either just, I guess, raise your hand, and then we can allow you to speak, or just put a comment on the side chat if you'd like to do so. So I'll just like to see if there's anyone who's willing to speak. Oh yeah, I even forgot the rule. Oh yeah. You have to come. You can come here.
Hi everyone, my name is Linda. I'm a volunteer with the Youth Cafe. There's something I've noticed everyone is talking about, the issue of people, the issue of the high taxation that we're facing, high standards of living. But I feel like there's somewhere where we're becoming a little bit ignorant and a little bit sidetracked, because there's a lot of infrastructure development that is happening in our country, and that has to be paid somehow. And we elected a leader who literally told us in his 5-year plan, in his mini, that his plan was to develop and concentrate on infrastructure. And if we keep on having issues with a way forward of how we are going to solve the issue of the great debt that we have in our country right now, I feel like we should concentrate our energy more on looking for ways that we can implement for the people who are stealing this money. Maybe they bring it back, like seizing of assets. That makes more sense. Seizing of assets, accountability in terms of someone facing their actual term that they have been given in terms of a sentence. For example, the last person that was arrested, the last person that was given a sentencing of around 60-something years, I can't remember his name. He was an MP. I can't remember his name properly. He didn't serve his full sentence. He's out, but most people don't know that. Yes, Waluke is out. He served, I think, around several months, 3 months, right? And he's out. And he is out. He stole money. We have someone else, the guy who's accused of killing someone, Obado. There's another case of him stealing so much money, and he obviously will buy again. And I feel like we need to push when we do these kind of reports, when we handle these kind of situations. I feel like we need to concentrate our energy on pushing for implementation, for recovery of assets, for recovery of public funds that have been stolen. Put the ombudsman on the spot. This is literally their job. Let them recommend to Parliament that these people should not, handle in this situation. Another thing I don't think people know is that we can remove an MP from office who we put there before their term is over under the Constitution. That is something else people also don't know. We have the power to remove an MP from office that we already put in office. I can't remember the actual article, but we need this is the direction that we're supposed to take in terms of handling a recovery of monies that was stolen, in terms of taking us back from the great debt that we have and the money that's already been stolen, because we can't do anything about it, it's already gone. So instead of us concentrating on how high the cost of living is going to go higher, that is a fact. It's going to go higher because we need to pay this money back, and we are trying to move from a third world country to a second world country. Because if you go to Uganda, their cost of living is very low. But have you seen the country? I'm not trying to make them seem lower than us. Economically they are, but they have zero development. If you go to Kampala, they don't even have proper roads. So we have no, as in, I'm sorry, yeah. Well, Tanzania also, yeah. The only country I can say in East Africa that is properly developed, I would say, is Rwanda. And you can see that they have concentrated on infrastructure, and you can see their currency is closer to ours. And their currency, I think higher than ours, by maybe I think 14 shillings. So as in terms of such aspects, this is going to happen. The cost of living is going to go higher. as in, we're facing very hard times coming. But let us focus our issue on the aspect of cost of living in Nini, on implementing ways of making these people accountable. Like she is saying, the future leaders. Make these current leaders accountable, like Japan did with their was it Japan or South Korea, I think, did with their former president. Right now she's in prison because of embezzling funds. This is what we need. We need to put very harsh consequences on our current leaders, so that the future generation doesn't suffer so much from their decisions, like she said. But on the aspect of the debt and the cost of living, that year too, we have to accept the taxes are going to go high. The rice, the sugar is probably going to reach maybe even 200, I don't know, but it's going to become it's going to become more difficult. This is going to happen, but the direction we need to take, I feel, should go to that side. So that was the issue that, that's the part that I thought we need to clarify on the direction that we need to go to. Yeah.
I see that your hand is up. Kindly feel free to unmute.
Okay, thank you. And remand partners. I think just to start, that high prices and taxation is actually a issue of high concern to the youth. I'd say that was surprising for me. I had expected unemployment first, because I would assume that more youth are unemployed, so they would want income before complaining of the high prices. But then this is a baseline study, so it really gives me that aspect of understanding what the youth actually think. I was thinking otherwise, and here is a research telling me something else. The other issue I saw is social media as an alternative awareness creation voice. And my concern is, how do the youth use social media especially for political causes? Currently, I know there's a very big battle on the issue of disinformation, especially on Twitter. And of course, the very fact that social media is less objective, less factual, less logic, it's more of hyping, it's called what, hashtag. And so the question is, how useful is social media, especially to the youth? I think that's a big question that for people doing planning, that is important. Then I've had a chance to also scan the report. There's the issue of biggest impact for the future, which I liked. I've seen unemployment, high prices, and corruption leading. Surprisingly enough, hunger, stroke, famine, and healthcare seem to score very low. I thought the youth would think of food and their own health, especially, again, from social media, you can see a lot of appeals on the same. But the biggest question I wanted to ask, and from the presentations and even the comments that have been given, are youth the weakest link to Kenya's good governance? Anthony spoke about youth not registering, youth requiring incentives to register and vote. But these are the same youth complaining of bad leadership. These are the same youth complaining of everything not happening. These are the same youth not attending public participation fora for budgets and all that kind of governance opportunities. So my biggest question is, are youth the weakest link to this country's, to Kenya's good governance? That's it from my end.
Thank you so much, Ludi. I don't know who will answer that question. I do not want it to be me. But I'm also seeing a comment from John. He says the best way to implement that is by electing totally different youth leaders in government seats, and also let's encourage youth to participate in posts. I don't know who wants to take up Ludi's question. Anyone? It's fine. It just cannot be me because I'm the one who's always answering those questions in media. Here you go, Melvin.
Ludi, I think you're right, and I think we have also seen. Let's take for example, in the last few years, I think 2-3 years, we've seen there's this position called CAS. I'm calling it this position because apparently it's an illegality, and they tried to put a few youths there, people between the ages of, let me use 18 and 35 because I don't know the exact ages. And these are people who we believed the last few years, they even led institutions like universities. And when we look at, because I will not answer your question as yes or no, but when we look at how they've been performing and what they've been doing, are they that weak link? Have they done well to encourage even more spaces to be occupied by the youth? What are they doing? Or they're still, did they just go there to clap for that regime and to even encourage them? Another thing is the way you're saying, I have been involved very actively in mobilizing people, especially university students, to register as voters in the coming elections. And honestly, I can count, and probably I will not count both my fingers and my toes, the people who actually went to register without them asking for unipe fare, you know, if at all it's maybe like a mile away, unipe fare, or at least give me some tea. By tea, you know what I mean. So it is yes, because why are you talking about we do not have good laws, and yet you do not want to take that vote so that you can put somebody in that parliament who you think can do that? Are you still going to blame your grandmother who actually voted for her age mate, and you did not vote for somebody who you think can be there? So then it means that you're also that weak link. And even in how, let's I do like I really I don't want to mention names, you know. I'm being a bit. There's the issue of, yes, she's raising the issue of transparency, but now you see we have different stakeholders in all this. There's the transparency which we are urging IBC to at least you know, make things transparent, make these things work for us. The best you and I can do, since we are not there, is to mobilize and to campaign for these good leaders who we think. When we get there, well, I really I don't have all the solutions, so I really don't know what you're going to do about IBC and the transparency, and even political parties. Being that even political parties, we might have very good people who want to vie, but they will not be given tickets because they cannot buy. You know, there's that aspect. But still, I keep saying, we are giving up for who? Because if I say now, I'm looking for some little money so that I can take a vacation come August, it means I've given up, because I do not want to vote then and we'll have like a 1-week holiday. I want to go for a vacation. It means that we've already given up. So the thing is, revolution does not come at the, we are praying and we're just doing little. We just have to keep going. That is what we have to keep doing. Remember, we also have very good MPs huko nje, but we have a very, can I call it bad, when the presidency, you know, and maybe the executive. Kila mtu ako na opinion yake when it comes to that. So there's, I think I lost a train of thought somewhere. So there's that we have to keep doing it. And you see, what I was telling my people was, you cannot give up that now you do not think that your vote matters the way you used to be told. You cannot give up on this. See, we have people going on the streets every day, activists, and they get arrested. They wear out. Then they come back. So we cannot give up. If we give up, we actually paving way for this mediocrity. We are paving way for these bad people to come in. So we have to keep going. I cannot assure you that your vote will count, but we have to keep going. And you also cannot come and complain of bad leadership if you're not taking part to even remove them. Another thing, we have incumbent MPs, governors, who they're there, and we have seen the injustices they have promoted. We have seen how bad they have done since time immemorial, since maybe they were student leaders or since they were wherever they were. And guess who's campaigning for them and championing for them right now? It's us, by the way. It's university students mostly. It's 18 to 24-year-olds who are like, this person is paying me. I know there's the aspect of money, and we're all looking for money, because are you going to afford 150 sugar if you don't get the money? But at the same time, I keep saying, can we look just beyond tomorrow? Can we look beyond today? Because if this person has been in parliament and this is what they've done and we are campaigning for them, then it's exactly the same thing it's the same thing Ludi is talking about. So this is the generation. This is where we really have to take care of our youth. Ludi is asking, should Kenya go the Australian way? Oh, that's not my role. but where if you don't vote, you are denied government services for the term of the next government. Well, Ludi, that is a radical move that could work. But then again, will you show me? Okay. Yeah, those people also are coming from somewhere. But what if I voted and you didn't even, like, my vote didn't count at the same time, So the thing is, we need to sleep on this, guys.
Yeah.
Hi again. Yeah, I've been listening to all of you guys, and I just wanted to respond to some of the comments that I've had so far. Ludi was talking about asking a question whether the youth are the weakest link. And I don't want to say yes or no. This is just a matter of perspective. And I believe that this is the reason why we are here, all of us. And I love the fact that this is not a project that is being done by one organization, but it's actually a consortium of different groups or organizations that are youth-led. And you guys are coming together to actually come up with solutions. So I would just say that this is just a matter of perspective. How do you want to view yourself? Because I mean, you guys are the youth. Let me remove myself from that because I am above 35. But it's a matter of you looking at yourself in the mirror and asking yourself that question. As a young person, what do you want to call yourself? Are you the weakest link or are you the strongest? Because right now, remember we said you guys are like the majority in this country. And if you want to make a change right now, even in the next election, it is possible for you to do it. You just have to, mobilize each other and, decide on what you want to do. There's something else that you mentioned about the fact that medical services and all that is not really a priority for the young people. And from where I'm coming from, we work a lot with young people, especially startups, micro and small businesses. And we realize that most of these young people are, some of them are even students. And those who are, you can imagine your parent can only offer you medical insurance up to the age of, I think, 24, 23. So after that, you're on your own. You can imagine now you're done with school. Can you actually afford to pay insurance? That's like maybe some good insurance would cost you 100,000 and above. That's definitely impossible. So you would find that that is the reason why probably that is not something that they are really focusing on right now, because even the businesses that we are talking about, the micro businesses, they're not able to actually make enough money to, earn a living. And my point was for one of the other things that maybe you guys can look into is to push for the government to come up with favorable tax laws that would favor young people, especially those who are below 35, to just give them some sort of tax break, because the MSMEs are actually a biggest contributor to the country's GDP right now. And if we have more of these young people or these people in these MSMEs registered and actually paying taxes, then, you know, I was reading a survey the other day, and they were talking about how majority of the MSMEs are actually not registered, but these guys are actually making money. So this is a lot of tax that is not captured, but people are actually doing business. So how can the government actually create favorable business environments for young people to actually, you know, prosper in whatever they're doing? And the more they prosper, the more taxes they will pay. So if maybe for startups between maybe 0 to probably 3 years, if the government can give maybe half, you know, cut the taxes into half, or even give zero taxes for 0 to 1 year old businesses, for them to actually get to a point where now they're making enough money to be able to sustain the business. Those are some of the things that I think would really, really help to create a favorable environment for young people to do business. And also we keep talking about, and we will keep talking about this aspect of unemployment, but who is now the biggest employer? It's not the government. The government is already bloated. If you look at the corporations, right now corporations are actually, you know, thinking of how can we put in technology to reduce the number of staff that we have in our businesses. Some time back, I had the CEO of Equity talking about how they want to, you know, reduce their staff by half, by now introducing ways in which people can actually bank online and, you know, just reduce this issue of people going to the bank. So who is going to employ these young people? There are these MSMEs who are coming up. And if we don't really focus on that, and there are actually very, very many. I saw even during this pandemic, I saw on the, what is it called? This platform for registering businesses, BRS. So over the new businesses that were being registered for the last like 2 years were over 500,000 new businesses being registered. So how about we focus on how can we support these startups, micro, small businesses to actually thrive, so that now when they get to a point where now maybe there can be a threshold where when you are actually doing revenues of a certain amount, you can now start paying taxes, or it can be maybe on a graduated scale where you start paying taxes at a certain point, maybe after 1 year. And then as you go on, because what we are seeing now is, you know, the government just introducing new taxes of, you know, trying to tax, you know, even the small businesses, even the mamambogas. So I think it's something that really needs to be considered, that aspect of just supporting the MSMEs. Thank you, Diana.
So thanks, Diana, for that feedback. I think you've given us a lot of valuable points. For me, I think, Ludi, you've actually asked the right questions in terms of the baseline survey and how do we translate the online youth anger? How do we make youth political participation count? You now fully understand the reason behind the baseline survey, because we genuinely felt there was a disconnect, there's a gap, people are not communicating the right way. Because they're not communicating, we're not heading in the right direction. And also just to say that we're in a meeting last week with Maureen, actually it's this week with IBC, my goodness, this week. And Madam Kimeu from ORPP, she had very startling statistics. She basically mentioned that as much as there are 83 political parties in existence right now, 17 million of the registered members, only 4.5 of them are youth. 4.5. That is such a small number compared to the 17 million who are registered. So it also means there's a huge gap in terms of that participation in party primaries, which counts, because it depends who gets on the ballot, the youth are not there. So as much as ORPP have designed a platform where you're able to register to a party online through eCitizen, they did this because they noticed that gap in young people, but we haven't even mentioned the number of women, because even in that 44.5, I really doubt women even reach 1 million. So the participation of young women is actually decreasing. So there's a huge gap, there's a huge disconnect. And now people in the space where we're in need to recognize that and find ways to now get to these young people to want to engage, and using these methods of engaging, which just does not end or start at the ballot box and a voter's card, even in the aspect of accountability. Because people like us, we are constantly writing to DCI, EACC, but we find that we're the only ones as a youth organization doing that in terms of public litigation. It is also time consuming, expensive. The youth are unaware of the processes. So to me, how to answer your initial question, it's unfair to call youth the weakest link, because sometimes the systems have forced them to be the weakest link. It's you're in a game, and in the field, the referee, the goalkeeper, all the important aspects of the game do not belong to you. You're supposed to lose this game, but you're told play. And that's how I see young people and their participation. When I look at the Universities Amendment Act, when I look at public participation, the fact that a lot of counties don't have a standardized framework for public participation. So even the youth, they are not really engaged to participate. They are not supposed to be, because these are supposed to be processes that bypass them so that they're able to have the resources that they want. And this, I can give a classic example in Kericho, where the youth didn't even have a budget going toward youth programs. But through engagement, through mobilizing, forming youth networks, youth groups, they were able to put 30 million in the county budget of Kericho County. And then a further 4 million was able to go toward the wards. But that's because of the sensitization, the partnership that they had with us as well, and we had to walk them through that. So now they have formed their own network to be able to follow through. And that's how we have a program that's ongoing currently. If you see on our handles, we're looking at the lack of toilets in public primary schools, something that should be accessible. So accountability is important, but even the offices that are supposed to provide us this information are slow. I'm still waiting on a response from DCI. But right now, I'm not sure if I'll get that response, because I'm seeing some news about people. So, but I'd like to wrap up this meeting. So thank you so much for your time, but I'd like to ask Maureen to please give us some closing remarks. Thank you.
Yeah, well, hi everyone. Mine is really going to be very brief. We've had all these insights. It's very good to see that us as young people, we have the solutions to the many problems that we are facing right now. But I mean, for us, for me, I think it's important that we get to participate in political processes in any way that we can, and find ourselves in these decision-making tables, and try as much as possible to also just get to voice our anger. We get to voice our our reasons, and find working with duty bearers, get to deliver the services that they are supposed to. So one thing that I mean, it's very nice for Evoke to help us have this report and articulate the beautiful thoughts that we once had as a conversation. And as young people, youth-centric organization, let us not allow this document to collect dust in our shelves. Let us push for, we have very beautiful recommendations coming out of this document. Let us push for them to be implemented. Let us find ways of leveraging, our expertise, our networks amongst each other. Let us organize ourselves. Let us mobilize the young people and see that these recommendations that we have are implemented, And I mean, there was a question that Ludi asked, then how do we use the Youth Manifesto in the run-up for the next general elections? And how can this document be used for political education and mobilization of the youth to lead in political conversations? I mean, the Youth Manifesto is a document that seeks to just organize the thoughts, the needs of young people, and use it as a method to convene the political leaders that are going to go into the upcoming elections. And we can use this manifesto to just call on to these leaders, and we tell them, guys, this is what us as young people want. And if you don't sign on to this document, then we are out. But we cannot do this if we do not speak in unison as young people. So it's important for us to come together and bring our thoughts together. We have the reach. We keep saying that we have the numbers, but what are we doing in these numbers really? So it's important for us to just come together, mobilize ourselves, and push for these reforms ourselves. So with that, I'd really want to thank all the participants that have joined us today. And also special thanks to Evoke Global for coming up with the report. And also special thanks goes to Siasa Place for really pushing for this, since the onset up to now. Very much thankful for the Siasa Place team, the Youth Cafe, Article 19, the YSO Consortium, Papas, and all other stakeholders that believed in this and who are our supporters when you're walking this journey. So from me to you, namaste.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for joining in. The conversation still continues on our Twitter using the hashtag #TaxBurdenKE. If you wish to reach us more on this, you can go there. Thank you so much for taking your time to be part of this. We at Siasa Place, Youth Cafe, Article 19, Evoke are truly grateful for your time. Thank you. You may leave at your own pleasure.
Here are the top search results.
How we can reach out? How we can reach Diana?
Yeah.
Oh, how could we partner with you guys as persons with disability groups? Yeah. For us at Siasa Place, you could reach us on www.siasaplace.com, and then you could also reach out on our support at siasaplace.com, Youth Cafe.
Oh,